Hi, this is Derek Murphy of Creativity. I'm going to talk a little bit in this video about book covers. And I talk a lot about book cover design on most of my sites, but I haven't really talked about designing for a series. So if you want to take your book cover, or if you have a series that you're planning and you want to make sure that the books all look like they're part of a series, that's important. And I'm going to share some of the things that I'm considering now in the hopes that it'll help you if you're thinking about a simple book cover for a single book or a series. So I've learned a lot in this first year. These are some of the covers I have on Amazon. Interestingly, because I'm a designer, I started writing all of these books from a piece of art rather than the story. So I found a piece of art that I liked, and then I found a story that I could tell about that piece of art. But then since I had published, I also redid these and made them a lot more colorful and a lot more bright, a lot more contrast, because I wanted them to stand out on Amazon, but also because in my category there's some amazingly like almost fluorescent bright colors and a lot of glow. That's more for like contemporary urban fantasy where you have more of a kick-ass girl protagonist. My books are all a little bit moodier dark fantasy, so I'm rethinking what I want to do with my covers. And these are all fine. I've been really happy with the results since I've published these. But now I'm thinking about a series, so I have to think about what to do when I have more books out. And I need art that really lasts through the whole series. So I actually started with like my Fallen was one of my basic not templates, but like this is a best-selling cover that's well known in my genre in dark fantasy. So I wanted something that looks kind of like that. Same with let's see, Defiance is another one. A really pretty, very dark, natural outdoor woods. This one has a tiny bit of a castle down here, but you can't see it very much. Nice, clean text. That's kind of what I was going for. So the art that I found originally was a simple violin piece. And I find art on DeviantArt. The original was more like this. I haven't done much editing yet. And I had a simple title. I ended up using something like this, but then I went through and fixed it and started adding more bright colors. And then I went and I even did it like a, oops, I think this is a moving GIF one. I went and I did like one more version that's even more colorful, just to stand out more. But it looks good. I mean, it's a good cover. It's worked well. But now that, like I'd made that before I'd really written the book, just because I thought it was a really awesome cover. Now that I've written most of the book, I'm finding, what my stories are and how I want them to be perceived when I have a series. So I found new art recently, and this is part of the problem, is that the art isn't all by the same artist, so I have to try to find 3 pieces of art that kind of work. This one is very cool. This was the original, actually, which is an awesome piece that I had kind of changed up a lot. On DeviantArt, usually you can pay between $100 and $300 to the artist to use a piece of art, but that's kind of expensive if you have 3 pieces. But you get 3 book covers for $900 is not that bad because I can add my own text, but you need to hire a designer who really can add, even if it's simple, like you're just adding the text, you still have to get that right because a lot of designers will screw the text up. This designer, I'm actually buying a lot of art right now from this girl who does amazing art, but she puts kind of unprofessional text on it. So if you bought a book cover that has an unprofessional text, you're really ruining the art. So I'm just buying the art and asking her to take all the text off so I can do it myself. So this is another really nice piece of artwork that I could use. So I'm trying to find 3. So I found this one. I think this is fantastic and more fits, even though I'm writing like paranormal romance with magical elements. So this cover is really attractive and fitting for my audience. Mine are kind of darker and edgier, more realistic. So I really like the style of some of the new. This is another like. These are other arts that she's done. That's another really good piece of art. And what was the last one? Oh, here's another one. She does a lot of violin pieces. This is a great piece of art. I don't really love her face, and there's not a lot of action, and it's just not quite as powerful as like this one. So this is the one that I really wanted to use, but I couldn't find 3 of them that I can use together, and that's a problem. And she had one other one, but it was already taken. This is another piece that's amazing, but I don't really know who this character would be in my series. So it might be like I could use it as a prequel or an add-on later if I want to develop another character. That's probably not one of the main books in my series. This one's almost okay if I take, it was actually for a CD cover, but the art is okay if I take away the band name. So I was thinking I could do, and then I found this one from another artist, which is really good, but more stylized. So I was thinking I could do this for the 3 in a series, which looks pretty good, except this one has a lot more style. So this one and this one are pretty different. And like I already colored these a bit, but I'd have to color the violins to make them more visible, because like in this one, it's already super dark. You can hardly see it. So it really has to stand out on the cover. So this could work, but I would probably need an artist to stylize this one or remove some of the style on this one so that the 3 really work together. But then I found another piece, which is this one. Let me zoom this a little bit. This piece, and this is an amazing piece of art. And the interesting thing is, like, this is really powerful too. Even though I like this one the most, these are more emotional, more powerful. This one, I think, would sell better no matter what, just because it's more of an emotional piece. So even though my character, like, there's no ocean in my book, but I'd have to like invent a story where she goes to the ocean, or even if I don't have an ocean at all in any of my books, it still might sell better. So that's the problem with the series, is that with any book cover, you always want to use the book cover that's going to sell the most copies, not the one that necessarily represents your book exactly. So I was thinking like how I would organize. I could also use these 3 because I really like this one, but it doesn't really fit with the others so much. But then the other thing is you want to use your best picture for the first book in the series, because with your funnel, like you're always going to sell more books of number 1 than number 2 and 3. So you hope that the readers who buy number 1 will also buy 2 and 3, but it will always be less of a number. So you want to make sure your most impressive piece of art, the one that's really going to convert the most people, is your first book. So what I would like to do is use this piece of art for the first one, even if I can't get anything that really fits for the other books in the series, because if fans read the first book and they like it, they're going to buy the other books because they like the story. So the cover is not as important in the second or third books, because it doesn't have to sell a cold reader, because people are going to see it and they'll know it's the second book in the story, so they're going to go back and look at number 1. Number 1 is the book that has to convert a cold audience who doesn't know you, they haven't read your books before. And that's why I would use this picture, because it's a really nice emotional picture. I don't actually know if I can use this yet because I found it on DeviantArt and I don't have permission. What DeviantArt does, they have people who put up pictures, and then they have other people who use photo manipulation or digital painting to improve them and make them awesome. So people who put up art may not be able to sell the art or give permission on the art. They'd have to ask the original model of the piece whether it's okay, or they might have to pay something to the original model. So it's a little complicated, and you can't always get permission if you find a nice piece of art, which is frustrating, because more recently I've just been finding, let me look at my other one, mermaids. More recently I've just been looking for art on DeviantArt, because like my covers are okay and I can do a lot of photoshopping, but like this is the one that I was using, and the photoshopping is actually not very good in that one, even though people say they really like the cover. It's just the quality of it is not super great. This was the original. This is, I mean, the photoshopping is okay here, it's just not super. This is the one I was thinking of using for the full book. I put the castle. It's a nice cover. I've seen this girl on other covers, which isn't a huge problem, but I'd avoid it if I could. This is the one that I redid that's more colorful. It's still very decent. It's just, like I said, my books are kind of dark fantasy. So I found this other art that I love and I really want to use for a series. I can't because it's not available or she sold it to another artist. So I thought this would, because in my book I'd have to change the hair because she's dark haired. I don't love the face on this one, which kind of sucks, but I love the general style. This is Consuelo Para, and all of her work is just really emotional, really great colors. So if I just start with this art, I know it'll be a lot easier to sell my books because the art will do most of the work and I won't have to convince people so hard to try out my books. But you need three that kind of work together. So these three I thought worked really well together. This would be a great one for like book 3 when I could put a destroyed city in the background when the merman people kind of take over the world. But I can't use it, it's not available. This one is available, but I don't know if I will buy it because it's not my favorite piece. Even though this is really good, I still need books 2 and 3. So unless I can get the artist to make me something that matches for the whole series, I don't know that I'll actually end up with that one. This is another piece of art that I liked. That was pretty cool. It might work for one of the books in the series. This was Amanda Hawkins' book cover. This was kind of the style I was going for. It's just a really nicely designed, in young adult, but really in almost any genre. One amazing scene with one central figure with a contrasting color is a really smart choice. It's just simple. It looks good. If you add simple text, it's gonna work and sell the book. I don't think I have. Oh, this was actually the original piece of art that I based the story. Like I said, I start from the art first. So this was the art I found. I think I saw it on Facebook, and this was the beginning of the story Shearwater, which now has been downloaded probably like 10,000 times and has almost 300 reviews, which is pretty cool. But it started with this, which is a darker, more emotional, moody piece of art, and I think my book is kind of like that. So this one would be a little bit closer. The one I'm using right now, I think the problem with it, even though it works and it converts people, it's I think this is what I'm using. The quality of this one, I have a better one, but the problem with this one is that it probably appeals more to young teens who are looking for more of like a fun fantasy read, and my book is almost urban fantasy or new adult, so it's actually a little darker and more adult and more mature than this one suggests. So that's a problem with, like, even if you have a great cover that's selling the book, if it's attracting the wrong audience or building the wrong readership. So far, like, I would notice, you notice by the reviews, so if my books were reviewing poorly, it would be because I'm attracting the wrong audience. With this cover, because I have all my books on perma-free right now, I've been able to stay pretty high. So this gets a few hundred downloads a day, which is free marketing for me while I can work on my other book. So this cover is working really well, or it's working well enough. And it's attracting enough of the right readers because my reviews are overwhelmingly positive. If the cover was attracting the wrong readers, you would start to see a lot of negative reviews, which is a problem. And so, like, I don't necessarily want to change this cover to something darker or moodier if it's not going to sell as many copies, because you really want a lot of people in the beginning of your funnel, especially for the beginning of your series. So, like, what I really should do, whoops, let me find that mermaid one again. So what I really should do is, if I'm thinking about using this one, I should just switch the cover now for a while and see if my reviews and my ranking holds up, because that's a good way to test a cover. I know a lot of authors won't do this because most authors just, pick a cover and use it, but covers make such a huge impact on your ranking and your conversion I would really want to test out, does this style attract the right audience, and does it work well enough to keep my book high in the rankings? And if it doesn't, I would go back to this one, because really you want to use whatever works the best. It's not even necessarily the best designed cover, because I think this is much better design-wise than this one. But if it's not bold enough, or it's not converting, if it's not attracting enough of the right readers, then I would stick with this one just because it's working. So those are some considerations if you're doing a series, or even if you're doing a standalone book. I'm changing up a lot of my art. Right now I've been putting out half books, and now I'm changing into full books, so I'm thinking about redoing all my covers. This, I'll show you one more. This is the one that I was using, which is decent. The colors aren't super in the original. I just changed it a little bit to add a little bit more color, just because that does help. It's super dark. Dark fantasy is usually pretty dark, but it's almost too dark. Like I was doing Fallen, or a lot of these other dark fantasy book covers are pretty similar. So you really want a book that's similar to what's in your genre. But a lot of these were really dark already. So I was thinking of, I found this other art that I like. I might redo this whole series, because there are three pieces of art that are kind of similar. They have a dress. If I added the scissors and the string, then they would make a pretty decent series. Anyway, so someone also told me recently, I'll show you one more thing. Let's see. So this is art that I like from Consuelo, and I've just been kind of saving. I'm buying a lot of her art just because I really love the style. So the one that I bought recently, I put this on Facebook, and I was asking, like, which of these should I buy? And like I said, the text isn't very well done, but all of this art is really, really good. So I actually bought this one, which is an amazing piece of art. This one, not for the same series. This one and this one, I'll probably put those three together in one series. I don't even know what series it's going to be yet. I don't have a story for it yet. It'll probably be something vampire related, paranormal vampire. And somebody was kind of making fun of me on Facebook, saying it's ridiculous that you can just buy any art and use it for any story, rather than, like most authors, they will design their story, they'll write their book, and then they'll try to get the cover to match their story. And that's not really the way you want to do cover design, because you want a cover that attracts your audience. That matters more than if it fits your story. So I can write a story that's loosely, something like this, but actually it doesn't really matter. Most of the dark fantasy stories, they look something like this. They have a girl from the back in a red dress, and that's basically it. And that tells you that it's probably paranormal romance. It might be young adult. It might be vampire, because there's so many books that look like this. And some authors will say they don't want something cliched, or they don't want something that's too that looks like everything else. But actually, the point of a book cover is to tell your readers what genre it's in very quickly, and to let them know it's like the other books in that genre. So if you try to do something totally different that doesn't, like if you're trying to get a bestseller in this genre and you don't have a girl in a dress in a forest, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're gonna have to work harder, because people will have to see your cover, and it's not going to tell them immediately what it's about or what genre it's in, and then they're going to have to read your description to find out what it's about. Most people aren't going to make it that far. Most people will see your cover and they'll leave, because they assume it's not their type of book, and you've already lost that sale, because they're not going to read your description, your reviews. So your book cover has to already tell them it's like those other books, those best-selling books in your category, and it does that by looking like those other books in the category. That's why I know I can use these pieces of art, because they're amazing pieces of art, and because they're really going to attract my target audience who read this type of book, because they'll see it and they'll like the art, and they don't care what the title is. I'll put the title really small, put the author name really small. The art's going to do all the work. The art just gets them to click on the picture to find out more about the book. And then if they like the description and they have enough reviews on there, then they're going to buy the book. But what a lot of authors screw up is that they write the story first and then they try to get a book cover that matches the story. And readers don't care if the book cover matches your story because they haven't read your book yet. So they don't notice, like, it's common, like an author may say, I mean, like the hair should be the same color, the eyes should probably be the same color, but like, for example, an author may say, well, she really needs a yellow rose, or I really want to put a journal or a book down here, or I want to change the background and put her like in a school. They want to match the details of their book. That stuff doesn't matter because what you'll end up doing is taking a really good piece of art and screwing it up by trying to add specific details that don't look as good or just aren't important, like they detract. Because your book cover is not about the details, the specific details. That's a cognitive, intellectual, rational information. That's when they're thinking about buying the book, those are the things they consider. Your book cover, they're not thinking about buying the book yet. The book cover is just to get their attention and to attract them and appeal to them. It's not rational, it's emotional. So they look at your book cover and it has to have an immediate emotional impact on them, not like, oh, I wonder what this journal is about, or I wonder what this, this background is about. It has to have one total impact and be one unified piece of art. It has to be really powerful. So the more like little details you try to add in, the less powerful it's going to be. You want to think of just one really perfect scene, and you communicate emotion with colors and contrast. So most of my covers are actually I add a lot more contrast, but I really like the glow in this already, so I probably will leave this one alone. But you do powerful covers with color contrast. This one I might add some dark around the edges. Probably this one too. So you do want some color and you do want some contrast, but you don't want to be adding in a lot of specific details about the book because that stuff doesn't really matter. If I go back to the Fallen book cover I showed you earlier, it's a girl in the forest. It doesn't really even fit that book very well, but that book sold, I don't know, 1 million copies or something, because the cover is so beautiful. People keep buying it. She doesn't, she barely even wears a dress in the book. Most of these books, they don't actually wear a dress. They're normal teenage girls who are in school or something wearing jeans. But this type of cover sells to that audience, which is why you use this kind of stuff on the cover. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but it is really important that you get this right. And it's really important, that's why I design from the covers first, because I'll pick a cover that I know will sell lots and lots of books, and then I'll try to write a story that's good enough to satisfy the readers who were attracted by that cover. And luckily, this year was my first year publishing fiction, and I was kind of trying things out, but people are liking my stories enough that I get really good reviews and I get a lot of downloads. So I've now tested that I can write stories that are good enough to satisfy readers of my market. So now I'm just I'm kind of doubling down. Now I'm starting to invest in series covers and series art. I'm buying a lot of art. These were 150 or 200 each, and I'm buying a bunch of this kind of stuff right now. I'll show you one more, because I know that the art sells the book. And usually, I'll find something. Here's one more. This was just a stock photo picture, which I thought was really awesome. So I started writing this post-apocalyptic dystopian fiction about this picture. And it's a good picture, and the story's pretty good. It's coming along well. I think it'll be a successful book. But recently I found another picture that's better. And this was art by someone I found on DeviantArt, who actually, he's a Turkish artist, so I have to pay him with Western Union because they don't have PayPal. But so now I'll just use this piece of art because it's just a better piece of art. It's more emotional, it's more communicative, and it's going to work better even though it's not as colorful, although I might add a dash of color in there. And even though I really like this picture, I think this one's going to sell a lot better, and it's better for the story that I'm working on. So you really want to focus on the art first. When you're hiring a cover designer or you're looking for cover design, you really want to focus on finding one amazing piece of art and not worrying about, don't worry so much about the font or the details or like, oh, it's got to have, a building over here and it's got to have blue sky or whatever. Focus on the first immediate emotional impact and not the details, because that's all that really matters. Most authors screw up their covers by focusing on the details, and they end up with a collage that's really not very powerful. If a reader has to look at the different elements, then their attention's divided. You should have one scene that's immediate and powerful. You shouldn't have different elements that distract and detract from the immediate impact of the art. Okay, so I'll stop this video. I hope it's helpful if you're planning a series or if you're just doing a standalone cover design. Thanks.